The gravel crunched under the tires of an aging Buick as it coasted into the parking lot of a weathered roadside diner, a relic on Route 41 in Indiana that time seemed to have forgotten. The establishment, known simply as the Blue Jay, boasted red vinyl booths with peeling edges, faded signs whose colors had long surrendered to the sun, and a dusty jukebox tucked in a corner whose silence was as telling as any song. Inside, the air was saturated with the sizzling aroma of bacon and the rich, dark promise of freshly brewed coffee. Truckers hunched over steaming plates at the counter, an ever-gracious waitress refilled a regular's mug without a word, and in a quiet corner booth, an elderly couple exchanged whispered confidences. All was ordinary until a rowdy band of bikers, their presence marked by scattered empty plates and a splash of spilled ketchup, made their entrance into this quiet world. The soft jingle of the doorbell heralded the arrival of Lorraine as she stepped inside, her steady hand firmly guiding her father by the arm. At 24, her bearing exuded both gentle resolve and a quiet defiance born of a life that demanded strength. Beside her ambled Daniel Briggs, a proud veteran whose eyes had been surrendered to darkness by an IED in Afghanistan 6 years past, yet whose spirit remained unbowed. Though his sight was lost, his stride was that of a Marine, his shoulders squared and chin lifted in silent dignity, even as a worn cane marked his measured steps across the polished floor. Guiding her father to a vacant booth near the old jukebox, Lorraine's touch was both tender and purposeful. Daniel, feeling for the seat's edge as he lowered himself into its familiar embrace, exuded a calm assurance that belied the hardships etched into his past. They fell into their well-rehearsed routine, Daniel's customary order, a steaming cup of black coffee, 2 eggs cooked just so, and a hearty side of bacon, was as reliable as the morning light, while Lorraine opted for a plate of pancakes drowned in syrup, their sweetness a quiet rebellion against life's bitterness. In the background, the diner orchestrated its own symphony, the clatter of cutlery on plates, the soft scrape of a fork against porcelain, and murmurs of conversation that wove through the air like an understated melody. Daniel's other senses, honed by years of hardship, read the room with unerring clarity. Even without sight, he could sense every nuance of its rhythm. But not all that morning was composed of gentle harmonies. Near the window, the boisterous group of bikers began to puncture the serenity with cruel, biting jibes. One coarse voice sneered, "Look at her, a real seeing-eye daughter, isn't she?" Another followed, his tone laced with derision, "Ain't that sweet? Bet she even helps him tie his shoes." Their laughter, harsh and ill-timed, ricocheted off the diner's walls like shards of broken glass. A particularly callous remark sliced through the murmur. A biker with a thick beard and inked arms leaned in and mocked, "Sure, he probably even has to cut his steak for him, right?" Each word fell heavy on the air, and Lorraine's hands, hidden beneath the tablecloth, tightened into silent fists. Though the cruelty stung, Lorraine fought to remain composed. The tension in the room thickened like a gathering storm, each harsh word and forced chuckle raising the stakes of an unspoken battle. Her heart pounded with a mix of anger and determination as she forced herself to ignore the venomous whispers. After all, the last thing she wanted was to disrupt the fragile peace for her father's sake. Yet, beneath that calm exterior, a decisive spark ignited. With deliberate resolve, Lorraine reached under the table and withdrew her phone, its screen a sudden beacon in the dim light. The mocking laughter from the bikers faltered for an instant as one of them jeered, "Oh, what's this, calling the cops now?" But Lorraine did not rise to the bait. Instead, she pressed a single number and held the phone close, her expression unreadable. The ringtone mingled with the diner's clamor, heralding a turning point that no one could have predicted. On the other end of the line, a deep, steady voice answered with quiet authority. "Hey, it's me. I need a favor," the voice said, carrying the weight of years in every measured syllable. In that breathless moment, the air around the bikers shifted imperceptibly. The man behind the voice was no stranger to hard-won battles, a friend of Daniel's from days when honor was forged in the crucible of conflict. The lead biker, a rugged figure with stained teeth and a sneer permanently etched into his features, scoffed loudly, "Oh, she's got backup now? What, your boyfriend's gonna come save you?" His tone dripped with mocking derision as he leaned back, his heavy boots propped carelessly on the table. Yet even as he laughed, something in his eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty, as if the room itself had begun to question his authority. At that very moment, the diner's atmosphere began to change. Eyes that had earlier been fixed on empty plates and casual conversation now darted between the unruly bikers and Lorraine, drawn to the unfolding drama. One by one, new figures emerged from the diner's periphery. A man with silver hair and a sharply creased Marine-style jacket took a seat at the counter, nodding at the waitress as though he were a regular. A woman in her 60s, sporting a navy patch on her sleeve, leaned casually against the wall near the jukebox. They were not drawn by the biker's bravado but by an unspoken sense that integrity was about to assert itself. Then came Carter, a broad-shouldered, weathered man in his late 50s whose very presence commanded respect. His hands, etched with scars and the stories of battles past, moved with deliberate grace as he strode over to Daniel's booth. "Briggs," he said softly, as though speaking a sacred name. Daniel's head lifted, his silence affirming the bond they shared, and in a hushed exchange, the name Carter was uttered, a name that evoked memories of shared hardships, of battles fought side by side in distant, dusty lands. The lead biker, unwilling to cede control of the moment, cleared his throat with a dismissive chuckle. "What's all this then?" "Some kind of reunion," he mocked, his voice attempting to inject levity back into the situation. But Carter's eyes burned with quiet intensity as he leaned forward, his words measured and laden with experiences that far outstripped the biker's petty insults. "Tell me," Carter began, his tone low and unyielding, "have you ever felt the sting of shrapnel as it tore through the silence of a desert morning? Have you ever sat in the dust as bullets kicked up sand, praying that you'd make it home to those who depended on you?" His voice was not raised, but its resonance filled every corner of the diner. Real toughness isn't broadcast with loud jeers or empty threats, it's carved out in moments of sacrifice, in the quiet resolve to stand up when it counts. The words fell over the table like a heavy cloak, silencing even the most boisterous of the bikers. A wiry young rider, his beard patchy and his eyes darting nervously, attempted a weak recovery. "We get it, man, just talk, nothing more." But his protest was feeble, dissipating into the thick silence that had now overtaken the room. Carter's gaze never wavered. "You parade in here, thinking that rolling up on your roaring machines makes you kings," he continued, his voice a measured rebuke. "But you've never seen what it means to stand in the line of fire, to hold a friend as he bleeds, and to pray every moment that you both emerge unscathed. You're not tough, you're just loud, and your bravado is as empty as the echo in a vacant room." The lead biker's smirk faltered, his eyes flickering with something akin to doubt. He reached into his wallet and, in a clumsy bid to regain the upper hand, tossed a few crumpled bills onto the table. "We're leaving, anyway," he muttered, his voice betraying a hint of retreat. One by one, the bikers began to rise, their earlier laughter replaced by an awkward hush. The bell over the door jingled softly as they filed out, leaving behind an air heavy with unspoken defeat. In the wake of their departure, the diner seemed to exhale. The waitress resumed her work, smoothing over surfaces and rearranging chairs as if the disturbance had been nothing more than a passing squall. At the booth, Daniel reached once again for his coffee, the familiar clink of the cup a quiet punctuation in the calm that now reigned. Carter slid into the booth across from Daniel with a relaxed ease that belied the tension of moments earlier. "You all right, old man?" he inquired, his tone imbued with the kind of camaraderie that only shared hardship can foster. Daniel's lips curved into a wry smile. "I've been through worse," he replied, the quiet pride in his voice resonating with every syllable. Lorraine, her tense grip finally softening, allowed herself a small, relieved sigh. The bitter echoes of earlier mockery were gradually replaced by the gentle warmth of solidarity. Carter's eyes twinkled with mischief as he teased, "Seems like you always let your daughter handle your battles for you, huh?" Daniel chuckled softly. "She's more than capable, saved me plenty of trouble today," he admitted. Lorraine rolled her eyes good-naturedly, adding, "Guess I figured I'd spare you the hassle." As the conversation drifted into comfortable banter, Carter's voice took on a reflective quality. "It never ceases to amaze me," he observed, "how the loudest voices often belong to those who have the most to hide. Real strength, true honor, needs no shouting. It speaks quietly, through actions and sacrifices that can't be measured in decibels." His words lingered in the air, inviting quiet contemplation from everyone present. For a moment, Lorraine's gaze wandered toward the door, her eyes filled with a fleeting worry. "Do you think they'll be back?" she murmured, the memory of their mocking laughter still stinging. Carter snorted softly. "Not a chance, they were all bark, and when confronted with real grit, their tails tuck in faster than you can blink." Daniel, lifting his coffee cup in a measured toast, added, "There will always be those who believe that respect is something you demand, not something you earn." Carter nodded in agreement, his smile wistful yet knowing. "Yet every so often, someone comes along to remind them what true strength really means," he said. In that shared silence, the diner seemed to hold its breath, the lessons of honor and dignity settling over the room like a gentle mantle. Just then, the waitress approached with the check, placing it on the table as if to signal that the brief storm had passed. Before Lorraine could reach for it, Carter intercepted with a playful shake of his head. "Don't even think about it," he said, pulling out his wallet with a light-hearted chuckle. Daniel, ever the stubborn soul, tried to protest, but the warm, familiar banter diffused any lingering formality. Outside, the world had shifted subtly. The chill of a new morning had replaced the stifling heat of conflict, and the lowering sun cast long, forgiving shadows that seemed to bless the quiet victory inside. With the diner once again returning to its routine hum, Daniel and Carter began to gather their things. The moment of confrontation had passed, leaving behind a profound reminder: real power isn't measured in loudness or numbers, it's found in quiet dignity and earned respect. As they stepped toward the door, Carter called out with a teasing smirk, "Take care of that old man, will you?" Lorraine glanced back, a fond smile tugging at her lips, before joining her father outside. The door's bell chimed its final note, a gentle punctuation marking the end of a chapter fraught with tension and the promise of renewal. Inside the Buick, as the engine purred to life and the vehicle began its slow departure from the Blue Jay's sanctuary, a reflective calm settled over them. Daniel's voice, soft yet imbued with the weight of his years, broke the quiet. "You did good today," he murmured. Lorraine returned his gaze with a modest smile. "I learned from the best," she replied, her tone both humble and proud. Daniel's laugh, a low rumble that carried a lifetime of unspoken gratitude, filled the car. "That's the only compliment I'm getting today, isn't it?" he teased, and even as they drove away, the bonds of family and honor grew ever stronger. In the rearview mirror, the Blue Jay and its tumultuous morning receded into the distance, leaving behind echoes of a hard-won lesson. The mocking bravado of those bikers, once so confident in their raucous laughter, had been silenced by the quiet, unyielding force of true respect. In that singular, pivotal moment, it was made clear that genuine strength isn't measured by volume, but by the courage to stand up for what is right, even if that courage speaks in whispers. If this story has stirred something in you, if it reminds you that respect is earned through quiet acts of bravery rather than loud displays of might, share it with those who need a reminder that real power is gentle, enduring, and unmistakably true. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories where honor speaks louder than words.